Hello, everybody. Welcome and welcome back to BnB Anime. It is Boxing Day.
All right, so who we fighting?
I don't know. The elves, or maybe the reindeer for like scuffing up all of the roof tiles, or
You know what? You're right. My shingles, they have had their issues.
yeah.
Can
We
you
just got
file
those
an
replaced
insurance
only the other
claim?
year.
Can you file an insurance claim if Santa fucks up your roof? Is that covered under insurance?
I should think so. I hope so.
I mean, one would hope, but
Hmm.
I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah, no, I'm not entirely sure either.
Interesting. Interesting.
Interesting.
So,
Yeah.
well, did you have a good holiday? Did you have a good Christmas? Did you get any gifts? Did Bean get any gifts?
Bean and I did get gifts. We did have a pretty good holiday, I think so, anyways.
Mm-hmm.
We tend to keep it pretty small. We're just a family of four, so it's not a big celebration on our end. But we had I got a pair of boots, which is always nice.
Fancy.
I do like boots. I also got a new book, which I'm excited to dive into properly. I had a quick look at the back. I haven't had a proper look at it yet, but it seemed to be set in 1940s London and is about some guy who is related to a pub, if I can remember correctly, which seemed my voice. What just happened there? Okay. Goodbye, voice. I don't need you today, apparently.
No, not at all. Who needs a
No.
voice?
Right. And so that seemed really interesting. So I'm excited to have a proper look at that. Tilly got a proper bone rather than just like rawhide, which she was excited about. And she also got a stuffed snowman, and Cedar got a stuffed Father Christmas. And both of them have survived. I posted it on Tilly's Instagram, a picture of her with the snowman with the caption, "How long do you think this is going to last?" It has lasted. So surprise there.
But for how much longer?
How much longer? Yeah, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see. It might be one of those ones that just strangely sticks around. We have this silicone ghost that we got probably about 4 years ago on Halloween. And for some reason, it's perfectly intact. It's just one of those ones that she's decided not to destroy. But all other versions of that toy have been completely disintegrated. But that ghost, he stays.
I mean, I guess even dogs have favorites.
Yeah. So
cool.
that was good. I got my mom. Oh, my phone buzzed. Goodbye, phone. You can go to that.
Get out of here.
Get out of here.
We got important stuff to do.
Yeah. My brother got some new stands for his computer to like raise the screens up so it's more ergonomic.
Ooh, fancy. All right, like it.
My dad got a new GoPro because the last one that he had like didn't even have a screen. That's how old of a GoPro it is.
Oh shit. Okay.
Yeah, real old. And he uses it when we go snowboarding and skiing, or when we're in the van, or whenever he's like hiking or with the dogs or whatever. He uses it all the time. But the big thing that he uses it for is when we go snowboarding or skiing, he watches the videos back so he can like tell us what we're doing wrong. So he'll like say like, "Oh, you're not in a deep enough squat," or things like I can't see about myself when I'm snowboarding. And he does it for himself as well. So quite often when we go out, either I will or he will wear the GoPro, and then we can critique ourselves and get better at snowboarding and skiing, which is something that has improved both of them for me since I started when I was like 11. So I'm excited to probably test out the GoPro and see how that goes. But he also, he has a Volkswagen van. Like, he likes to just drive around in his van sometimes and record himself and the countryside. And they moved to Canada for the mountains, so.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And then my mom, I got her some linen designer trousers. How fancy. Because they were heavily on sale. And I told my mom about this because me and my mom love to find good bargains. So they were heavily on sale, and there was one left, and they were in the size that are just slightly bigger than her, like one up from my mom, but they're elasticated in the waist, and my mom loves to sew. So I'm like, well, just unpick the seam and shorten the elastic and you're good to go. And I was like, yeah, I'm going to do that. And so she has some really nice, like all natural fabric linen trousers for the summer, which she was super excited about.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So that's our presents for the family. What did you get?
I got some gift cards. I got some candy and cookies. The girlfriend got me some stickers from Hello Senpai because their shop, whenever they're actually open, is absolutely wonderful, and I love them.
Cute.
She also got me a blanket, which is awesome, and I needed one because my blanket got broken, and she got me candle. which I still can't really use because COVID still has my sense of smell.
No.
I may get that back one day. I may not. Who knows?
Yeah.
But yeah, it was
What
good. I enjoyed all my gifts.
Good. What did you do for food?
Metric shit ton of food. Bunch of
Same.
turkey, bunch of ham, bunch of mac and cheese.
Mm.
You know, the usual Christmassy American things.
Yeah, yeah. American Christmas is very different from British Christmas, which I find
Mhm.
very interesting.
British Christmas is typically like turkey and stuff like that specifically, whereas that's kind of like the American Thanksgiving, right?
Yeah, yeah, but because we don't have a Thanksgiving, that is on Christmas. But because you do have a Thanksgiving, I guess you decided that you didn't want two of those meals really close to one another, like within memorable distance of each other. And
Mhm.
so decided to like add stuff to Christmas, which is very interesting. Like I find it very fascinating that you guys have ham on Christmas.
Mhm.
But we didn't actually have turkey this year because obviously both my mum and I are vegetarian.
Mhm.
So a turkey for two boys is a whole lot of meat.
Yeah, that's a lot of turkey.
Yeah. So they got a chicken instead. They had chicken, roast chicken.
Oh, you see, I thought you might have went more Japanese and got like KFC.
No, no, still roast. Just roast
KFC
chicken.
has cornered the Japanese market with their advertising.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's something that I find fascinating. And it's one of those things where I'd love to kind of be in Japan around the festive season to
Mhm.
see what it's like. Because obviously I'm not going to eat it, I'm vegetarian. But like I'd like to be around with the culture and the advertisements and like, you just turn on the TV and see what they have to say. Or like when you're scrolling on Instagram, how your ads change when you're on Instagram just because your location's different. I would be curious.
Let's do it. Let's just take a Christmas trip.
I'm fine with that. Good excuse.
I mean, hey, why not? The podcast, pay for it. I know you
Right?
can't, but pay for it.
Yeah, one day, one day. But yeah, my mom and I had a nut loaf
Mhm.
instead, and that was really nice. And lots of good fats and proteins in nuts. So healthy for us. And then we had like cabbage and Brussels and carrots and beans and what else? Swede or rutabaga, I believe you guys call it. You weirdos.
I have no clue what you're talking about.
It's like a yellow root vegetable, kind of like a fat turnip.
You talking about a squash?
No, it's like a carrot, but exploded.
So a
I'll
squash.
see if I can Google an image for you and send it to you. Because a
Yeah,
squash
'cause
is a
I'm
different thing. A squash is a gourd, I believe, and this is a root.
what the fuck's the difference?
A gourd is like a pumpkin.
No, a pumpkin is big and round. That is
No,
not a
but like
squash.
that's the type of vegetable. It's like the family. Anyway, Swede veg. Rutabaga, yeah, and it's like the purple and yellow one. It's
Okay,
that.
let's see here. Oh, I don't even know what the fuck that is.
Yeah, it's a root. It's like a really big fat root, and you boil it in like little cubes. You cut it up into little cubes, and you boil it, and then drain it, and then mash it like you would potato. Add butter and salt and pepper. Oh, it's so good.
I feel like I'd rather have a potato.
But it's not. It's not like potato. It doesn't taste like potato. It's like more watery. It's more like a carrot in the fact that it's naturally sweet.
Mm-hmm.
So then the butter to it just makes it creamy and sweet mush. It's great.
So like mashed sweet potato, which I
Kind
still
of,
feel like would be better.
but different. I don't know. You have to try it because it's different. It's more watery because it's more like a carrot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I can't believe you don't know it because like they're in Canada and they're in the UK. They call them rutabagas here in Canada and then Swedes in the UK.
I don't know if it's just not local to the South or what the deal is, but I don't recall. Fuck off outside. I'm being important right now. But yeah, I have no clue. I don't know if they're just not in the South or what the deal is because I don't recall having ever seen them.
Well, keep your eye open, and if you find one, buy it, and I'll tell you how to cook it.
Okay, sweet, sweet. I
Yeah.
will keep my eye out for a thing that looks like a plum, but different.
It's big. It's probably like the size of a softball, maybe a bit bigger.
That's
Softball?
fucking huge.
Yeah, it's a big thing. Like we only used half of it yesterday for
What
4 of
the
us.
hell?
It's like it's a root. It's like a bulbous big thing that sits in the ground and the plant sprouts out top of it and then it has tiny little tendrils on the bottom, you know?
So it's like an onion, but not.
Oh, in the way it's like a carrot. It's like a carrot but fat.
Okay.
Yeah, it's pretty much exactly like a carrot, but just like just tubby. It's a tubby carrot.
It's a tubby carrot.
It is. It's really
Oh,
good. I enjoy it. It's my brother's favorite vegetable. It's very good. And it's a
huh.
proper vegetable, whereas like a potato is more of a carb. This is like an actual vegetable.
But they're all vegetables. Except the
Potatoes are
tomato,
carb.
it's a fruit.
Well, anything with seeds on the interior is a fruit. So cucumbers are fruits. Bananas are berries. I don't
We don't
really
talk
understand
about
how that
cucumbers
works.
here. Those are gross.
I love cucumbers. I can't have the skins though. They give me indigestion.
You see, any kind of cucumber just gives me like extremely bad acid reflux, whether it be cucumber, pickle, whatever. So I avoid them like the plague.
Yeah, it's the skins. Try eat the middle.
No, it doesn't work. Like I've
Really?
completely peeled a cucumber. It doesn't work.
Really? Because my
hmm
grandma and I had the same thing. My grandma passed, but my grandma always used to peel cucumbers, and I never used to get it when I was a kid. I was like, you can
hmm
just eat cucumbers as they are. And then as I got older, I'm like, oh no, I can't anymore. I used to be able to when I was a child and invincible, not anymore.
Yeah, we are adults. We are no longer invincible anymore.
Nope. But yeah, Christmas was good. Had a good Christmas.
That good. That good. So, on the topic of things that may or may not be invincible, you know what's about to not be invincible? Or what
What?
is actually going to be invincible going
What?
forward? Our list of things that may or may not be the best and worst things that we have covered this year, at least according to our own diversions.
Yes, yeah. So that's what we're going to be discussing today. We haven't covered anything specific for this week, and next week we are doing rankings, basically.
Yeah, this week we've got our how did we label that? It's the year-end review where we cover our top 10 and bottom 10 things that we covered throughout the year. And it took us a while to figure this shit out.
It did, yeah. We were having some good discussion because a lot of the stuff that we covered this year, there was a lot of times where it was sequels of stuff where we were doing one season and then the next season. There was a lot of times when we were doing second seasons of stuff that we'd covered the first season last year. There was a lot of stuff where we covered like really like hyped up stuff. So most of the stuff that we covered this year are highly rated by the two of us and have done
Mhm.
very well in the world. So I think the hardest time we had was actually with the top worst list as opposed to the top best.
Yeah, we had some that we knew were 100% going on the list, but then there were others where we're just like, shit.
Mhm.
But also the top 10, trying to actually figure out what to place in what order was also a pain because our top 5 we kinda knew,
Yeah.
but then figuring out 5 more just to kinda change up how we did last year in that 3-hour fiasco.
Yeah. Yeah, so we're doing top 10 and bottom 10. I also will say that we are going from Rascal Does Not Dream of Dreaming Girl, which is episode number 47, because although that technically was in 2020, it was
Was
in between, it was after the anime awards of last year.
Wait, was that technically 2020?
Yeah,
I know
well, at
we
least.
recorded it in 2020, but did it go up?
Oh, okay, no, it released 3 days into 2021. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at the wrong date on the spreadsheet. Yeah, so it was that's the very first one that we're going from. So anything, if you're looking at our anime list or our episode list, that's the one that we're going from all the way down. Anything before that was eligible to last year's awards and is ineligible for this year's awards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
and
then
maybe after
anything
like
from this point going forward is all gonna be on next year's list.
exactly. And maybe after like 5 years of doing the podcast, hopefully we're still doing the podcast in 5 years, we will do a best and worst of the podcast so far.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. It depends on how life is in 5 years. I don't know. We never predicted a pandemic, but here we are.
Yeah. COVID brought
Yeah.
this thing about, and then we're gonna kinda go from there.
Yes. So do you want to do the best or the worst list first?
I feel like it's always best to get the disappointment out of the way first.
Okay. Okay. So disclaimer for the worst list. These are not necessarily bad animes. It's one thing that we really, really, really took into account was how memorable they were for us. Because of course we watch a new anime every week. and review it, and then kind of discard the information and watch a new anime and review it and then discard that information. So the ones that were the least memorable ended up getting on this list because we were going, did we watch that? What was that about? And that was one of the reasons as to why they ended up being on the list. So it's not necessarily that they're a bad anime. They may be your favorite anime. It could just be that we didn't remember what they were.
Yeah, except for number 10. Number 10, we remember exactly what it is. We just figure it, kind of deserved a place on the list.
It's my favorite, but it's the worst.
Yeah. So coming in at number 10, episode 69, because it had to be.
Yeah.
Keijo.
It's Keijo. Yeah. And like I said before, this is one of my favorite animes. It's dumb. It's stupid. It makes me laugh. It's stereotypical. It's cliche, but also overly sexual and just dumb.
It really was the plot, the whole plot, and nothing but the plot.
Exactly. But it's still one of my absolute favorite animes. The reason why it makes the worst list is because it's got very little storyline, and the storyline that it does have is shallow. It went with an idea and it rolled with it, and because of that, I love it. It's just dumb.
It's extremely memorable, and it is brilliant for how stupid it is.
Mm-hmm.
But it was a great time. It was a good watch. But because of a lot of the other stuff that we watched this year, it kind of takes number 10.
Yeah, I think, like I was saying before, because we covered mostly really, really, really good animes this year, it was really hard to pick things for the worst list. And so even if I enjoy something, it might not technically be the best. And that's the case here with Keijo.
Yeah, it kind of felt weird making a best and worst this year, mainly just because the best were really the best and everything else just kind of sat below it in some semblance of order. But everything we covered was still very, very decent.
Yeah.
I mean, even number 9 being Tonikawa, it was one of my favorite rom-coms of the year, hands down.
Yeah.
But it still takes number 9 because compared to other things, it does not hit the mark.
Yeah, and so I completely agree with that. I found this one pretty forgettable. It's one of those ones that I remember the name of it, and then I try and think more about it, and I just don't get it there. Like I don't have all the pieces to put it together, and I find it also blending in with another couple animes that we also covered this year that are in the list as well. And yeah, I just see it kind of merging together with other things. I didn't find it so distinct enough to where I can hear the name and know exactly which anime you're talking about.
That OP is still a banger, though.
Yeah. And then number 8, I feel like, is one thing that is, I think the main reason why it's on this list is because it was kind of out of context for both Brad and I. We don't have the history of growing up with it, and we don't have the history of watching the previous movies, but we did cover this movie, and that is the Sailor Moon movie that came out this year. We just didn't have the same kind of context as everybody else, so it didn't mean as much.
See, I grew up watching Sailor Moon, but I grew up watching the original Sailor Moon. I tried to get into Crystal, but Crystal, I feel like, just kind of took what Sailor Moon was and kind of washed it out.
Mm-hmm.
It just did not feel like Sailor Moon to me, so therefore I dropped it. And so I had no context going into this, considering the films were a direct continuation of where Crystal had left off.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, Janessa, don't kill us, please.
We're sorry. I love Sailor Moon merch. I think it's so stinking cute. But yeah, I haven't watched much of Sailor Moon itself.
And I love Sailor Moon, but this film just did not do it for me.
Yeah. I think it's one of those things where if we have time, we'll have to go back and try and catch ourselves up and see how our opinions change.
Eventually, one day, we'll be able to sit down and cover longer series on the podcast to where we can do things like Sailor Moon throughout its entirety and whatnot.
Yes. Yeah. And that takes us to number 7. Number 7 is one that you think I would have been completely obsessed with. And I did really enjoy, but I found that it just didn't hold in comparison to a lot of the other animes that we watched. And that is Arte.
You see, you enjoyed this one a lot more than I did.
Yeah.
Because I don't remember what I rated it, but kind of looking back on it, I want to say give it like a 5.
Interesting.
Because that's just how forgettable It is. I feel like it started off extremely strong with like the first episode or two, but then it's just kind of bleh.
Yeah, I feel like the anime itself is kind of slow paced, and it very quickly diverted from the core group of people who we were getting used to and sent our main character off into another group of people and then came back. And I feel like that kind of watered down the initial plot line. Normally, if you're going to have a main character go elsewhere and introduce new people, you would do that in a second season. Whereas they did that all in, I believe it was only one core as well.
Yeah, it was just
And so
a 12-episode core.
yeah, so they did all of that in a 12-episode core, and it meant that we never really got attached to any characters other than our main character, because just when we were getting attached to the dynamics between Arte and her senpai, her sensei, I don't know, the teacher person. um, uh, just as we were getting attached to the two of them and their dynamic and really getting to enjoy them, she gets shipped off elsewhere. And then we only get to see him again at the end of the season. And it felt kind of watered down. I would have preferred, in this anime's case, if they had just stayed and created that bond and strengthened that bond between the characters and between us and the characters, and then had her go elsewhere in a second season or a second core.
Agreed. Completely.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of things that did end up getting a second season, we just haven't covered it yet. Coming in at number 6, Kakigurui.
Kakigurui's on here for a couple of reasons, I think. Although both Brad and I have a very big attachment to this, it's just not able to hold up in comparison to other animes.
No, definitely not. Some of the animation is incredibly brilliant, and the overarching storyline was kind of interesting, but it took a lot of detours, and it was very weird. But what saved it from being lower on this list is solely have to do with the live action.
For some reason, this anime has just completely tickled us pink, both the live action and the fact that the live action is so drastically different from the animated version. Obviously, we are ranking the animated version here, not the live action, but our opinions of the animated version has been swayed by the way that the live action was done, because it's like the live action is a comedy. I wouldn't consider the animation a comedy. And so looking at such a serious anime through a slightly skewed comedic perspective has, I think, warped our opinions on it. Full disclosure, we are biased in this case. It's hilarious. We love it.
What do you mean? This is our podcast. We're
That's
allowed
true.
to be biased here.
Yeah,
We
that's
make the
true.
rules. We set this shit up. This is our world.
Yeah, and Kakugurui gets number 6 worst, but it's so good. It's one of those ones that I would recommend to people to watch if they're really into anime, because it's so ridiculous.
Yeah, well, once you've been in the anime community long enough, you kind of stumble across things like Kakigurui.
Yeah.
And then once you've been in the anime community even longer, you figure out about live action stuff. And then we just decided to watch the first few episodes of this, and I was completely swayed. I was like, the anime itself is decent, but holy shit, the fucking live action just gives me a whole different perspective for the show. The live action is wonderful.
Yeah. Whoever decided to take a serious anime and turn it into a fourth wall breaking comedy, they're genius. They're a genius.
And I really hope that they're not meant to be 100% serious with that live action. I just want to dream with the fact that they were just given full leeway to do whatever the hell they want.
Honestly, if they meant it to be serious, I kind of find that even funnier, that they had like the Office style camera pans
and like the zoom ins and everything.
Yeah.
It's just, oh my god, it's
brilliant.
And then number 5, although it was a comedy and was definitely decent, it definitely sits lower on our list, being Umaroo Chan.
Yeah, I think this one ends up on the list for me because I just don't really remember it very much.
This was probably my 3rd time watching it through whenever we covered it on the podcast. And although it is funny, it has quite a bit of pop culture. I can speak pop culture references. It definitely doesn't stack up to a lot of the other things that we've watched. But again, everything up to this point has still been decent. It's just kind of it sits closer to the bottom of the barrel for us, considering everything else we watched.
Yeah, it's one of those things that I've only just registered what we're talking about, you know? It's like
Mhm.
I'm just like, "Oh, okay, I have it in my brain now. I know which one that is." It just yeah, it wasn't super memorable to me, and it blended into me with, Dragon Maid? What was that one?
Oh, Miss Kobayashi's Dragon Maid?
Yeah, those 2 kind of blended in my brain.
You see, I can't blend them mainly because Kobayashi's art style is, I think, a lot more brilliant.
Mm,
But it definitely had the same kind of like wacky antics characters. The character, as far as like how the characters were done, are extremely similar. So I can kind of see it from that aspect.
yeah, it's just small thing being crazy.
Hmm.
Small character being crazy, and yeah, they blended. Also, with I have the gif of Tanaka-kun, the who is it that's hitting the table?
Oh, oh, what's her name? The really short one.
Yeah, I have that gif playing in my head.
Oh my god. I miss Tanaka Kun so much.
Yeah,
So good.
I think that's the thing. That's what it comes down to. Is like when I see things like Umaroo Chan, or yeah, there's just other things that I would recommend above them. It's not that they're bad. It's
Hmm.
just they wouldn't come to mind when somebody's like, "Hey, have you got a good like funny slice of life style comedy that you could recommend?" That's not. It wouldn't be the first one that comes to mind.
I feel like a lot of that, if Tanaka Kun had a dub, I feel like it'd be easier to recommend it to kind of newer, more casual fans.
Mhm.
But it's still brilliant, and if somebody ever asks what my favorite comedy anime is, that's gonna go to it hands down.
I think it's just tough when you have a favorite that you're always comparing things to the favorite.
Yeah, it definitely does make it harder.
Mhm.
And then number 4, Oramichi Unisan.
Yeah, and again, I think this is kind of the same thing as Umaru-chan. It's good. It's just is what it is, you know?
It has kind of its couple of standout moments, but that's kind of it. The OP and ED aren't of any note whatsoever. They were definitely designed for the show itself, also similar to Umaru-chan, but it still kind of sits in that same vein, but I didn't find it as funny, so that's why it sits lower than Umaru in its overall sitting.
Yeah, I thought it had a really, really great concept. I love the idea of a children's show host being shown from their adults' perspective. I think
Mhm.
that's a fantastic idea. I didn't belly laugh throughout the entire show, and I don't really remember any of the jokes. I find this one more memorable, actually, than Umaru-chan, but I don't remember it for being funny. I remember it for its concept.
You know why it's more memorable?
Why?
Because we covered it sooner.
That's also true.
But
That's also
so
true.
while we're on the topic of things that have a brilliant concept but fell fuck off outside. But yeah, something that had a brilliant concept but fell on its ass hard. Thanks to Cloverworks, we have Wonder Egg.
Yeah.
Just what the fuck, Cloverworks? You let us down again. This is not going to be your last entry on this fucking list. Don't. Oh, we're going to get there. Just trust me on that. But oh my god, Wonder Egg had all the potential in the world to be a show stealer.
Yeah, it fantastic concept, like Red said. Super interesting. The characters were good. I was enjoying it.
It covered dark topics in a brilliant way that didn't degrade any of those topics with mental health or suicide or anything like that in any bad light. It handled
Yeah.
everything beautifully.
Mhm.
And then it fucked it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and it covered
Uh,
some really progressive ideas as well, especially for Japan as well, where a lot of stuff isn't as talked about as it is over here in North America and in Europe. I thought
mhm,
that there was a lot of modern ideals in the show, and for that,
mhm.
I am really appreciative of it.
But it just fell on its ass.
Mm.
It definitely took a direction of, oh, hey, let's take this idea and hit rewind at the very end and kind of speed things up. And then it just decides to throw us into the furnace with that last episode. Also, fucking recap episodes in a season. Why? Why is that a thing? Why? Why have you done that?
Yeah, it's one of those things where I think I've kind of filtered out the bad stuff from my brain because I enjoyed the concept so much. And so I'm thinking about it, and the more I'm thinking about it, the more stuff I'm remembering. And I'm like, oh, that was bad. That was bad too. That was bad too. But my brain is going, no, but it was such a good idea because it was so progressive. And then it's like,
I
no,
mean,
actually, it
the
wasn't well executed.
the show was brilliant up
Yeah.
until we had a recap episode for episode 7.
Yeah, I
12th
do not
episode,
understand
actually
why.
13 episode anime, but episode 7 was a recap episode. Episode 13 was a recap episode
Yeah.
with a little bit of new stuff at the very end
Yeah.
that just left it more confusing than the rest.
Yeah.
Just
That to me kind of felt insulting. I would have rather that they had just said, "Oh, we can't post an episode this week because of whatever reason," and then had like a week off. And like I think most anime viewers, at least that I know, would be more accepting of a studio saying something happened, somebody got sick, or I like we didn't have the support that we needed this week. We can't get an episode out. We don't want to bullshit you with a recap episode or a poorly made episode. So we're going to take this week off. We'll release the episode next week. Especially with the pandemic, I feel like there's a lot more leeway to do that now than there may have been before 2019. Um, I I just, yeah, I feel like from now on, I would like to see studios being more open with their audience about shit not being made at the time that it's supposed to be made. We're human. We know that sometimes things happen and you can't get it out when it's supposed to be out. I find it more insulting to kind of masquerade it. Like, could you imagine how disappointed you would be if you were watching this week to week and then all of a sudden you get to episode 7 and it's a recap?
I feel like it's a little bit different from the TV perspective versus the streaming platform services.
Yeah.
Because on TV, it's kind of a well-known fact that television time is extremely important and
Mm,
extremely expensive,
yeah.
and especially in the anime market in
Yeah.
Japan. So if you have primetime TV slots, that's costing you money to not put something out. So in Japan, it
True.
makes
Yeah.
sense to put a recap episode out if you're not going to have what you're doing finished in time. But on streaming services, don't put out a tweet saying, "Hey, there's not going to be an episode this week due to delays." That's fine. People
Mhm.
understand. People aren't going to get upset. What people will get upset over is posting a fucking recap episode in the middle of the season on a streaming service. That is
Mhm.
garbage.
Yeah, yeah, no, I 100% agree with that. TV time is a different story. Streaming services, I don't think there's an excuse.
No, absolutely not. And again, that's just our 2 cents. If you disagree, I mean, we're more than happy to debate about it in the comments. That's just kind of it, because it is definitely something that I feel like can be discussed, and I'm sure people have a lot of thoughts on it. So if you do disagree or even agree, just let us know because we're genuinely curious what you think on stuff like that.
Well, it makes me wonder how many studios have like a backup episode or so, like those like chibi episodes where they're just kind of doing their own shit and having shenanigans. I feel like it would be smart. I don't know how cost effective that would be, but in theory, it would be smart for every studio when releasing an anime, especially if they're releasing it on TV, to have one of those kind of on the back burner like already made or like that they make through like weeks 1 through 3 whenever they have some spare time. They just put together this little chibi episode, and then if there are any delays they can then release it during whatever time as like an OVA. Or if there are not any delays and everything goes smooth sailing, they then have a bonus episode to release at the end or after a couple of weeks after the end, like just for funsies to kind of keep the fan base to try and like to kind of keep the fan base to like interested in the show. I don't know. I feel like that kind of level of a backup plan would be worth it to me to have that level of insurance, but I don't know how in reality that would actually work. And I'm also curious about contracts as well because of like with online releases, with streaming releases, are they contractually obligated to release an episode every week? And if so, does that mean that, like TV, they have to put out a, a recap episode if they don't have anything to put out?
I feel like with streaming services, it's a little bit different because obviously things are going to get delayed. I know Funimation has their issues with getting stuff dubbed in
Mm,
time. And I get it. We're in unprecedented times right now. So if it's going to be a delay and it's going to affect the overall quality of the product, then yeah, just delay it and people
yeah.
will get over it. That's just kind of common sense whenever it comes to stuff like that. But I think it just is all going to kind of depend on the studio that's doing it and the relationship and licenses that they have with those streaming services. Now, I do know that doing something like a chibi episode would be extremely expensive, or not
Mm,
extremely expensive. I'm assuming, judging off of what kind of research I've done into episodes and kind of an idea of how much they cost.
mhm,
I mean, they'd have to get a budget of like an extra 5 million yen or like 50 grand to do an episode like that, I think.
mhm.
So I think it would just kind of depend really on if I think it would be smart for studios to kind of budget for something like that, just as kind of a off chance. But again, with the market being like it is, I don't know how feasible that would be either.
It's the kind of thing that I would like to see being done by bigger studios with long-running shows and more like more flexibility.
Mhm.
And then because if bigger studios start to do that kind of thing, then it will kind of become standard in the industry. So then that will be then budgeted into the production of a show for like smaller ones. So it's something that I'd like to see like in 10 years time or whatever. I don't know, however long that takes. I know it takes a lot longer from idea to go from paper to actual practice, but however long it takes, I would be interested in seeing that become standard practice for studios to budget a backup episode.
I feel like it's a lot easier to do something like that with a longer running series as well, where
Yeah.
something that has 12 episodes, typically you shouldn't need that unless, you royally fuck something up at some point along the
Yeah.
line.
I just feel
Or,
like
a
because of the
pandemic happens.
exactly. I feel like because of the pandemic, everyone is starting to look for insurance, and that would be one way to provide insurance for animation studios. But it's just a thought.
Mhm.
Maybe it's a dumb one, but I don't know.
I mean, at this point, anything's possible. Anything can kind of happen.
Yeah, and that takes us to the second worst anime that we have covered. This one is one that we have spoken about on many occasions, and it is also one that would have benefited well from a backup episode so they could have worked their shit out. And that is Tamayomi.
It had so much promise, and it also had it had great animation. Like it did a good job until it came for movement. Like the still
Yeah,
frames and those kind of shots, those were great. They were wonderful. I enjoyed it. The story was great. They did good. But the CGI for the movement, oh my god.
and I think
It's so bad. It's so
it
bad.
is.
Why?
And the biggest thing about it that I find frustrating, I mean, first of all, I really enjoyed the fact that it was an all girls sports anime. They are rarer to find, they are harder to find. Most sports anime are featuring male protagonists. So it was nice to see a female based one, especially in more of a male dominated sport. Good to see. Enjoyed that. Did not enjoy the CGI because I also found it unnecessary considering the amount of baseball or sports animes that we have covered that we have covered and both seen on our own time that don't use the CGI that get the point across just fine.
I feel like we could have done without the body shots. Like you could have zoomed in and out of like the facial frames on pitches and throwing and whatnot,
Mm,
and then just showed the ball going. Like Big Windup was brilliant in their execution of body movements and stuff like that. But for some reason, this one just did not execute at all. And for that, it just takes our number 2 spot. On top of that, the OP and ED are not memorable at all. I cannot remember fuck all about the
mhm.
show other than it was a brilliant premise and it just kind of fell flat. But they hit all the baseball stuff beautifully. Like all of the way they went into strategy and figuring things out, they did a brilliant job with. It's just
Yeah.
I cannot forgive that animation at all. Like there is no excuse for that whatsoever, at least in my brain.
Yeah, and this show also has our highest drop rate ever, with a 25.59% drop rate.
Yeah, not gonna lie, if I wasn't watching it for the podcast, I would have dropped it too.
Mhm.
Now, speaking of shit, I wish I could have dropped, and something that I wish that I didn't want to drop. Fucking the worst thing we have covered all year, something that had the absolute most amount of hype going into it due to a flawless first season. Cloverworks, you fucked up. The Promised Neverland season 2.
Yes, this is, I think, the biggest fan disappointment in the past several years of anime. I can't remember a time when there was as big a fan disappointment as The Promised Neverland season 2.
Whenever you take a show that has an absolutely brilliant premise and you start off strong with the first 3 episodes of world building and building the outside world and introducing these 2 demons that are good and seeing all the kids kind of learn to grow and survive in the outside world. And then you take 144 chapters of manga and cram it into 6 episodes. And literally, you know how on DVDs you can hit fast forward like 3 extra times and it's going to like super fast forward?
Mm-hmm.
That's what those last 6 episodes felt like.
Not to mention, they then just did a slideshow for the rest of the story.
Yep. It's like, oh, hey, so listen, here's all the things you could have gotten, but you're not going to get it. It's,
It was just
I
the
hate it.
biggest
I hate it.
disappointment.
I've
Yeah.
never watched something that has just completely pissed me off in such a way. Like it's unreal.
Yeah.
I just look back on it with just utter disappointment in a show that I could not have been more excited for.
Yeah.
And it literally set the anime world on fire. Like people had torches and pitchforks.
Yeah.
So
I
I'm
think
glad
that
this
there
list
would
is
be
over. I hated covering those last few.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that there would have been a riot for the progress if we hadn't put Promised Neverland season 2 as the worst. So yeah, it's just so it was just so upsetting, I think, for everyone.
Yeah, we know some people personally that are going to be very happy to see that on the very bottom of the list.
Yes, yeah. But that takes us to the end of our top worst list, the top 10 worst animes of the year. And now we are going to be doing the opposite of that. Nice, happy, fun times. Get your smiles on. These are our favorites. If we have covered something and it is not in the best, but it is your favorite, let us know down in the comments or in the DMs or wherever you can interact with us or wherever you choose to interact with us. We're obsessed with finding out what you guys like and what you don't like because it helps us figure out what we're supposed to cover in the future, and also it gives us some good interaction. We like talking to you guys, we like getting to know you guys, and yeah, if we didn't put your favorite in the best list, let us know why we were wrong. We want to know. It helps us grow. Like we have said many times before, we are just 2 idiots with 0 qualifications that like anime. So yeah.
Yeah, and now, not gonna lie, we got real cheeky with this best list as well. As we
Yeah.
go through things, keep in mind the stuff that we are covering, we kind of lump together. Like Konosuba, we lumped both the film and the first season together, and we'll talk about the other stuff as we get into it without getting into the spoilers of our list.
Yes.
However, Konosuba coming in at number 10, it's just a laugh. It's fun. It's stupid. You cannot take it seriously. If you take it seriously, you're going to have a bad time. But if you go into it just looking for a laugh of just brilliant isekai fun, Konosuba's it.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like Konosuba is also incredibly memorable. I hear that name and I know exactly who you're talking about. I remember the characters. I see GIFs of Konosuba online all the time. I see memes, very commonly memed anime, and I think it's for good reason. I think it's worth the hype.
Oh, 100%. And then going into number 9, a show that had a lot of hype and delivered on all of the hype for what it is, Mob Psycho 100.
Yeah, and this is one that we've only very recently covered, but I still feel like it would have stuck in my brain if we had covered it 9 months ago or however long.
Mhm.
I enjoyed this one. It I don't know, it's gave a new element to a very, like, common story.
It just shows you what a story can kind of grow and build to. The
Mm,
animation style of the show kind of leads you to have different opinions going into it. And
mhm,
then it just kicks off and it's just brilliant.
yeah.
It's such a good time. And the OP is absolutely suited for it. It's just it's a good time.
Yeah, and I find that the individual little arcs throughout the show are also very well done and very well spaced.
Yeah, everything in the show is very well paced. It does a good job with keeping you interested and invested in the characters, and it's bingeable.
Yeah, very bingeable. Which takes us to number 8, which is one of my personal favorites, and I've spoken about it a whole lot. That's Dr. Stone.
And with Dr. Stone's second season having come and gone, and season 3 coming probably towards the end of next year, it's Dr. Stone's season 2 was a good continuation of the story. It was not as quote unquote perfect as its first season, but it is still extremely memorable. It lived up to all expectations. The world continuation and building was excellent, and just seeing how the story progressed and kind of leading up to where it's going to go, it's awesome to see. Also, OP and
Yeah,
ED were fantastic.
yeah, I very much agree with that. I feel like the first season is absolutely my favorite. Very much enjoyed that the most, but the second season absolutely did its job of getting me hyped for the third season. And so I still feel like it was very consistent. The first season is like an 11 out of 10, and the second season is like a 10 out of 10. And so there is a very slight disappointment in there, but you can't be too mad about it because it's still so freaking good. So I recommend both of them. I recommend watching the show. If you have a bit of a technical brain, absolutely watch the shit out of this. If you don't have a technical brain, I still think you're going to get a huge level of enjoyment out of it and maybe even learn something that you didn't know because it's just entertaining, even though it has this element of science running all the way through. I have learned things from Dr. Stone that I actually have retained in my brain.
Mm-hmm.
Which takes us to our personal favorite, I think, for both Brad and I, because of our emotional connection to this show and the fact that it started this whole podcast. And I can't believe we didn't cover it on our first year, but we had to cover it this year. And that is Chihayafuru.
Oh, I fucking love this show, man.
So good.
It's so good. This whole friendship, this whole podcast was forged out of a show about a card game that's not Yu-Gi-Oh!
Yeah, and it's a card game that I have since become obsessed with and genuinely want to see being played when I go to Japan.
I want to collect the cards. I will
Yeah.
never be able to use them because my brain's ability to absorb Japanese is absolute shit.
Yeah,
But
I
I
want
want to
to
own the cards. Like, I want to put them on my shelf. Like, it's just brilliant.
I definitely want to get to know the poetry and more of the history behind the games that are being played. The characters are fantastic. We have a wonderful trio here, and then a five pen a pen. I don't know what's a group of 5 people called.
A quintet?
Is it Quinn, not Pen?
No, it's Quinn. I think Pin is 6
Interesting.
because there is a romance anime that I think or actually it's a harem anime that I recommend or that I think I've scheduled for next year, but the quintessential
Ah.
quintuplets,
Oh.
which if you haven't checked out, it's a really good harem anime. I'm just saying, it's great. It's brilliant. It's got quintuplets. It's a fun time.
Nice. Nice. But yeah, Chihayafuru, fantastic personal relationship that we have at the show, and it holds up. It's a very, very sweet show that gets you hyped for a thing that you probably didn't even know existed if you are in North America, and um, and it is very motivating as well. I feel like it's the kind of show that after you watch, you want to go and do shit.
And it's like the only romance anime that Blue's actually invested in. So 10 out of 10. Great job.
Yeah, I was gonna say you got me hooked in a romance anime. What have you done? And
That
that
was you. You
actually,
recommended that to me.
I know I
You're like,
did.
hey, have you watched this? Because I'm watching it. And I'm like, I'll check it out. And then we both finished it around the same time. And we're like, fuck yeah.
So good, 100%, yeah. And then I think, yeah, moving on to something that a lot of people have their own personal relationships with. Although we had our personal relationship with Chihayafuru, I think this is one that a lot of people have a lot of nostalgia for.
So number 6 is Howl's Moving Castle and
Mm,
is to this day at the very top of a lot of people's favorite animes to watch, and especially their favorite Studio Ghibli film.
mm,
It is relatively newer to the podcast, is very new to Blue, who has not seen a lot of Studio Ghibli things, but And it's also the only Ghibli thing that we cover this year, but it for what it is, what it stands for, and overall just the film itself, it definitely deserves to take a place in our top spots.
Yeah, 100%. This movie was very captivating to me. I love all Ghibli films, and this was no exception. Fantastically, beautifully animated. I loved the voice acting of Sophie. I watched the Japanese version. I watched it subbed, and I found that her voice acting was phenomenal. And I very much enjoyed the film. It's another one of those romances that I thought was really well done, and it didn't feel like it was sickly sweet or being shoved down my throat. It was just kind of a background romance to a really fantastical, magical story. And that's the kind of romance that I tend to enjoy more than anything. Things that are straight romance, I find to be a bit too much for my rock brain. I don't, I don't know. So yeah, this was one that I enjoyed.
Now, speaking of relationships, but not in the romance sense, but in a relationship with the outdoors, you have Blue's personal favorite anime
Mm.
of the year, Laid Back Camp, both seasons, because we covered both seasons in the same year.
We did, and oh my god, this is the most relaxing, happy, squishy show you could possibly watch.
Oh, 100%. It's you can turn on an episode at any point and just have a blast. If you love the outdoors, it is for you. The OPs and EDs are excellent. The art style is wonderful. The backgrounds are absolutely brilliant. It is such a fantastic time, and I loved every minute of watching it.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like this is a fantastic show for those people who maybe don't have the best relationship with the outdoors as well. Like, if you live in a city and you don't have the ability to go out and go camping all of the time, this show can kind of give you, it can like scratch that itch of like wanting to get out into nature. And it can also teach you how to kind of explore your own local environment in a way. I feel like it kind of gives you that oomph to go out and go to a park or have a picnic or some shit. And it's so cute and I love it. And I would absolutely recommend this to anybody, whether you like, you know, slice of lifestyle animes or not. I feel like this is a good one to watch to just decompress from a stressful day.
So, with it being winter right now, more
Mm.
specifically for us, we're recording it on the day that it goes up. I'm going to be super stressed trying to get this edited on time. But it's with it being winter and the day after Christmas, turn your heat on, make yourself a cup of hot chocolate, snuggle up, and just turn on Laid Back Camp. It's brilliant.
Yeah, it is minus 27 degrees where I am right now here in Canada, minus 27 degrees Celsius. It is very cold. I can assure you I'm gonna go make a hot water bottle. I'm gonna go wrap myself in like 3 blankets and go cuddle a dog. That's what I'm gonna do when I'm done recording.
Yeah, look at that. Go do that.
Yeah.
Now,
Um
speaking of things that we're going to do after we get done with recording this episode, it's become a new tradition inside my friend group to watch the newest episode of Demon Slayer on the
mm,
day that it drops. And coming in at number 4 is Demon Slayer, more specifically, the Mugen Train arc. We have lumped together both the film and the 7 episode insert of season 2,
mhm.
and just because it's relatively similar, but I felt like it's kind of you can't take away from what the film itself accomplished in the world, becoming the highest grossing anime film of all time and the highest grossing film of 2020 period,
Yeah.
and also what the show brought to the table in new animation and clips and continuing on Rengoku's story.
Yeah, I feel like this you can't knock Demon Slayer's achievements. It's done so phenomenally well. The Mugen Train series gave us more background information. The Mugen Train movie established the entire situation. The combination of the two is definitely how I think that you should watch it at home if you've only seen one or the other. if you haven't seen the movie, I definitely recommend watching the first season of the Mugen Train. The first episode of the Mugen Train arc. And if you've only watched the series, I recommend just chucking on the movie and giving it a watch, because it does feel more like a movie to me. Even throughout the series, I still felt like it was just a cut up movie. So I feel like watch the movie because you'll get a real good flow going through that as well. So yeah, I don't know. It's you can't knock it. It's fantastic, really well animated, fantastic characters, made me cry. Yeah.
Now, speaking of fantastically animated, make you want to cry, is absolutely brilliant. Coming in at number 3, Haikyuu seasons 1 through 3, because we covered all 3 seasons this
Yes.
year.
Yeah, we did. And I know season 4 has some animation issues, which is another reason. Well, we haven't covered it, so we can't talk about it. But that, just bear in mind, season 4 is not affecting this at all, which is why it is number 3 and why we can say that the animation is spectacular. It's why I can say it's got some of my favorite characters in anime in general. I have the 2 main characters on my wall of my streaming setup still, even though I don't stream anymore. They're still on the wall. And I don't know, they're like one of the first pieces of anime merchandise I ever bought.
The show is wonderful. It will get you invested in a sport and in a genre in general. If you're not interested in sports anime, Haikyuu will change that entire world for
Yes,
you. It's
it will.
brilliant. It's amazing. I loved every minute of it. The 3rd season is one whole volleyball match.
Yeah.
And I can sit here and say, without a shadow of a doubt, I was on the edge of my seat for all 10 episodes.
Yeah, I remember telling Brad the 3rd season's one match and him going, "No, I'm not gonna like that. That's gonna be horrible. What do you
Well, I was
mean
like,
the
that's
3rd season?"
bullshit. How could you drag one volleyball match out
Yeah,
into an entire season? It
yeah,
was a shorter season. It was only 10 episodes. I'll give it that. But at the same time, they did that just beautifully. And I will recommend Haikyuu to anyone and everyone going forward, because it just does, it defines an entire genre of
yeah.
anime for me.
Yeah, it's so stinking good. Watch it if you haven't already, give it a watch. It's so good. I can't wait to hear Brad's opinions on season 4. I haven't seen it in a long time, so I'd like to give it another watch myself. And we're definitely going to be covering more Haikyuu on the podcast, so look forward to that. Number 2, we
Number
have
2, and my personal choice for anime of the year, but I
yeah,
can't knock the accomplishments of number 1. But coming
mhm,
in at number 2, my favorite thing that I have watched up to this date, at least throughout this year,
yeah.
and something that has taken a massive toll on my anime life and given me something to root for, ReZero.
Yes, yeah. ReZero is one of those ones that we have talked about till you're probably blue in the face. We have covered this so much here on the podcast, just little updates. It's always in our news segment whenever anything new comes out about it. You like we are the first. We're not the first to talk about it, but we always talk about it on the podcast. Is what I meant to say. And yeah, you'll always hear stuff about ReZero for us because I don't know. That's just like it's just one of those ones that just stuck with us.
So ReZero, Overlord, and that time I got reincarnated as a slime. If you ask most people what their top 3 isekai anime are, or what kind of defines that genre, those 3 will all take a place in everyone's favorites. And there is a reason why. They are
Mm,
all completely different takes on the main character getting transported to another world, with Overlord and reincarnated as a slime being your stereotypical, overpowered protagonist getting brought to another world. And then in the case of ReZero, it shatters that mold
yeah,
completely. Subaru gets absolutely torn. Like, he has his mental and physical state absolutely destroyed on multiple times. We literally watched this man go insane, pick himself back up, and just continue moving on. It gets you invested in characters that you wouldn't think that you would get invested in. It gets you invested in a love story that at first you're just kind of like, meh, like I don't necessarily get it. And it just it has made me feel more things than Your Lie in April has, and has brought me to tears so many times. And for that reason, it definitely takes my top spot for what we have watched. But ultimately, it kind of pales in comparison to the accomplishments and just overall effectiveness of what a show is and what our number one spot is.
Yeah, so taking our number one spot is probably not a surprise to you guys. It has taken the world by storm. It is in every merchandise shop you could possibly go into. And for good reason. We have Jujutsu Kaisen for number one. Yeah.
I mean, it deserves it. The animation is brilliant. The OP and EDs are fantastic. Its storytelling is captivating, and it is the epitome of what a shonen is. Also, it has the man that pretty much the entire anime fandom is just calling daddy.
Yes, yeah, fantastic character design, very distinct personalities of characters. We have gotten some fantastic voice acting. Such an interesting plotline that just hooks you from the get-go. This is a anime that I'm stoked to see continue on. I want to see more and more and more and more and more. I have really, really high hopes for this series.
I do as well. I'm looking forward to seeing where everything goes. I'm excited for Jujutsu Kaisen 0. So it officially released in Japan yesterday, and it has already, in its opening day, it sold, I think, 750,000 tickets. So it's performing extremely well. It's not on Mugen Train's level, because I think Mugen Train did over 1 million on its opening day. But still, to pull that kind of numbers in the middle of a resurging pandemic and pull those kind of numbers on Christmas,
Yep.
it's brilliant. So,
And it's not
fair
exactly a
play
date
to
night
it.
kind of movie.
Okay, now that that's passed. But yeah, it's fantastic. I cannot fault Jujutsu Kaisen in any way, and I know how the series is going to kind of move forward. It's going to be bloody, it's going to be sad, it's going to be a great time, and it's going to be great. I'm so looking forward to it.
Yeah, I am super, super stoked. So that takes us to the end of our best and worst lists. What did you think of our lists? What did you think of the things that we have covered this year? Let us know in whichever way you prefer to reach out to us, either on Instagram, Twitter, or down in the YouTube comments. If you're on YouTube, remember you are hearing this 1 week after we have posted it on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your other classic listening platforms. So if you want to hear us 1 week early, you can head on over to those and give us a listen on there and drop us a follow while you're there. If you prefer to be on YouTube, give us a like, hit that subscribe button, and put your opinions down in the comments. Next week is super exciting. We have our own version of the Anime Awards. We have taken some inspiration from Crunchyroll's list and switched it up a little bit, added our own. We have ranked a whole bunch of stuff we went through and had like an hour-long discussion on what we were going to put for everything. So we have a couple different categories like Best Boy, Best Girl. We have Best Comedy, Best Soundtrack. We have Best Romantic Couple. We have Best Duo, Best Trio, Best Team, Best Fantasy, all of that fun stuff and more coming next week. So make sure you tune in and give us a listen then.
Yeah, if you want to find us on Instagram and Twitter, we are at BnB Anime. You can also find Blue on Instagram and Twitter at Blue Lavender STM. I am not on Twitter, but I am on Instagram at Brad Carter Gaming. We also have a website where you can find literally all of our info, our entire backlog of episodes, info on us, info on future projects that we're working on, links to our IMDb pages, friends of the podcast, all of that other fun stuff at www.bnbanime.com. For right now, you have to put the www. We are going to be fixing that after the first of the year. Actually, we talked to our website guy, and that's going to be getting fixed and have some stuff added to it, like our top rated, bottom rated, drop rates, all that kind of fun stuff coming in the near future. So you can look forward to that.
Yes, yeah, and I think I'm not sure I did say it, but YouTube, we are also BnB Anime. So yeah, that's us. thanks for listening, and I hope that you had a wonderful Christmas. Let us know how your Christmas was. We want to hear about it. We want to know. And I know that like a lot of people don't necessarily celebrate with their families; they celebrate with going on dates and stuff like that. So let us know what you did for Christmas. Also, be safe. The pandemic is getting worse with this new variant. Make sure you are signing up for your boosters as soon as you can get them, or getting your initial vaccines if you haven't yet got them yourself. Keep wearing your masks, washing your hands, and social distancing, and stay safe.
And with this being our last episode of the year, I know I kind of got a little reminiscent, nostalgic last week. But again, thank each and every one of y'all for a brilliant year. And Blue, thank you for a
Oh.
brilliant year. It has genuinely been one of the best years of the podcast and also one of the best years of my life, continuing to be able to
Oh.
work on this and just brilliant stuff to come. 2022 is going to be a massive year for both of us, for the podcast and other projects that we're working on. And with it also being the last episode of the year, Happy New Year, everybody.
Yes, yeah, Happy New Year. I hope that you have a wonderful celebration. And thank you from me as well for listening to the podcast. Thank you, Brad, for being my wonderful co host and for editing a shit ton of these episodes. I really appreciate it. I know that I've been crazy right now with school, and I hopefully will be far more consistent next. Yeah, I know that we will be. We're kind of getting our shit together now, and that's great. Congratulations on the girlfriend as well. Love to
Oh,
hear about that.
thank you. Thank you. She is
Yeah.
wonderful and she kind of keeps me straight, I guess. I don't know. There's no actual doing that. I
Well, she
lied.
would be a
Sorry.
boy if she kept you gay.
Oh my god, that's brilliant. I love it.
And with that, that's it from us.
So thank you all so much for listening. Blue and I greatly appreciate it. Next week and our first episode of 2022 is going to be our anime awards. But until then, we'll catch y'all next time. Bye bye.
Bye.